Please join me in welcoming Jennifer today for a presentation.
The Artemis program overall and humanity's return to the moon, but we will focus on Artemis II, of course. So, firstly, can they see me? Okay, firstly, to understand what's going on with the Artemis program, you need to know a little bit of history. Project Mercury was NASA's first space program, which put 6 manned flights into space from 1961 to 1963. The name Mercury comes from the Greek god, in which Mercury is the messenger of the gods and super fast. Both the planet and NASA's program were named for this god. Mercury was all about what can we do and how can we do it.
It was about beating the Russians.
It was also about beating the Russians. So what can we do, how can we do it, and how fast can it get done? It had 3 very specific objectives, all of which were reached. The first was to orbit a manned spacecraft around the Earth. The next was to investigate man's ability to function in space. And lastly, to recover both man and spacecraft safely. Next was Project Gemini, which was the era of 2s. So from 1965 to 66, 2 years, it defined and tested the abilities that NASA would need to go to the moon. In Latin, the word Gemini means twins. Project Gemini was not just NASA's second spaceflight program, but it was about 2 astronauts launching together, and one of them going outside the safety of the spaceship, but testing an astronaut's ability to fly in space for up to 2 weeks, and to test 2 spacecraft meeting in space and being able to dock. It flew 10 manned missions, achieving all of its goals in those 2 years. Then, of course, the Apollo program. It launched 11 manned missions from 1968 to 1972, which was after losing its first mission and 3 astronauts to a fire in 1967. And that is actually important. If you saw the movie The Martian, you remember the line, "NASA hates fire"? Yeah, that's where it comes from, Apollo 1. So not only is it true, Apollo 1 proved and since then has shown how seriously NASA takes human life and how well it learns from loss of life to prevent from happening again. The name Apollo also comes from Greek mythology. Apollo is the god of the sun. So the story goes, the NASA director of space flight at the time this program was being established to try and get to the moon, he was reading a mythology book and he thought the picture of Apollo riding his chariot across the sun was appropriate to the grand scale of what the program was trying to achieve. So he named it Apollo. Of those 11 successful manned missions, Apollo 7 and 9 were actually only Earth orbits. They did not and were not meant for the moon. And this is the allegory for Artemis III that just got changed to being a Earth orbit only mission, which we'll talk about later. Instead, these astronauts tested equipment, spacecraft, and maneuvers that would be necessary when at the moon. Apollo 8 and 10 were moon orbits with astronauts. And in these ones, yes, it did show up. The pictures taken during these missions were invaluable for landing sites of the future missions. And this is the allegory of Artemis II that just launched and came back, taking missions, taking pictures of the moon. Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17 were all moon landings with astronauts. So 6 missions, each put 2 on the moon, while a 3rd astronaut waited in orbit to retrieve those 2. Apollo 13, of course, come on, there it goes, went from a planned lunar landing to a lunar flyby due to a serious malfunction. That is not the focus of this presentation. There is both a great documentary and a really good movie about Apollo 13 that you can go watch if you're interested. And then that was it for the moon for over 50 years, right? well, now, of course, NASA was busy with other programs during that time. The most notable of which was the Space Shuttle program. Okay, maybe not the most notable. We also have the International Space Station. But for this presentation, STS-51L, known to the rest of us as the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. In January of 1986, an O-ring degraded in the freezing temperatures of launch day. And yes, it was below 32 degrees in Florida for once. The solid rocket booster's seal failed. All 7 humans on board were killed in the explosion. After that loss, NASA changed its procedures about high-level managers being able to override a no-go given by any team, low or high. And again, not the focus of this presentation. If you want to ask me about that afterwards, I will happily chat with you and explain things. So now we come to Artemis. Artemis I returned home safely 4 years ago. Artemis II returned home safely 1 month ago. And we'll talk about that in a few minutes. The name Artemis, again, comes from Greek mythology. Does anybody know what it means? Artemis. No? Artemis, did you?
I knew it, but
It is, Artemis is the twin sister to Apollo. So the Artemis program, the name was chosen not only because to be both the sister program to the Apollo program, also Artemis rather, is the goddess of the moon, which is where we are headed, and to represent sending the first human female to the moon. Okay, video time.
Between 1968 and 1972, America launched 9 human missions to the moon, 6 of which successfully touched down, allowing 12 men to walk on the lunar surface. NASA's next chapter of lunar exploration, called Artemis, has the task of not just going to the moon to create a long-term human presence on and around it, but also to prepare for ever more complex human missions to Mars. In short, everything we must be able to do here, we must first do here.
And that's why we are going back to the moon now, to practice going to Mars. The moon is only 3 days travel. Mars is 6 months if we have ideal planetary alignment and if we get the expected advances in propulsion. The communication delay with the moon is extremely shorter than the delay at Mars. So we're also able to monitor and manage missions that are at the moon, which we won't be able to do with Mars in a 7-minute delay. That makes the moon the ideal test bed for getting to Mars. So with Apollo, it was a race to the moon. Now with Artemis, it is more than just a race. This time, we are going to establish a long-term presence on the moon. The Artemis program stands on the shoulders of the Apollo program, but there are differences, and I would like to go through them just a little bit here. So as I said, number 1, Apollo was temporary research. Artemis is sustainability, learning how to live and work at the moon. Humans will move from a constant low Earth orbit, that's the International Space Station, where they've been for 25 years, to a constant presence in lunar orbit via the next step in exploration, what is called the Gateway Space Station. The Gateway Space Station will orbit the moon, and you can see back here is where the Orion capsule will dock. Down here in the front is where the lunar lander will be docked, and the lunar lander will shuttle astronauts from Gateway to the moon's surface and back. So the moon becomes our gateway to all of humanity's deep space exploration. Mars first, of course, but hence the name of the proposed lunar base being called the Gateway Space Station. We are also going to a different location on the moon. So the Apollo missions all landed on the middle third of the moon, and all on one side, what is called the near side of the moon, the side we can see from Earth. If I cover those sites and the spaces in between, you can see all the parts of the moon that are still unexplored. The Artemis missions and the Gateway Lunar Space Station will orbit the moon pole to pole, shown here, and apparently I have shown there in red. instead of around the equator like Apollo. The Artemis missions will land at the moon's south pole, actually, because upside down, but anyways. Why the south pole? Does anybody know? Any guesses? The sun. It is the sun. The peaks of the south pole of the moon are always in sunlight. And so we don't need artificial lights there, and it is a constant source of solar power. Now, while most of the southern pole is in near constant sunlight, the basins of its craters are in constant or permanent shadow. And in those special craters, one second, scientists have found water they believe is accessible from the moon's surface, which we will need to be able to make oxygen for the astronauts to breathe on the moon. Hence, the South Pole. I'm going to do a Q&A afterwards. Can you wait? Thank you. Diversity in crew. So the current NASA astronaut corps more closely reflects now the nation it represents. And I apologize for the images. I didn't manage to get into this picture in time, but the names are all there. So in May, as of this month, 2026, it is currently made up of these 38 astronauts, plus 10 more astronaut candidates that started training this past December 2025. In December of 2020, NASA announced the 18 members of the astronaut corps that were assigned to the Artemis program. Since then, 3 of these astronauts have moved to the administrative side, so they will not be going to space, and 1 has retired. So there are now 6 men and 8 women for a total of 14. However, astronaut group 23 graduated in 2024, and I have not been able to find any information on if the 10 of them were assigned to the Artemis program or not. Potentially, all 10 were added. I don't know. I also want to note that 2 Canadian Space Agency astronauts graduated with astronaut group 22 in 2020, lots of 20s, and 2 United Arab Emirates astronauts trained alongside and graduated with group 23 in 2024, so only a year and a half ago. So with the 10 from group 23 and those 2, there's actually 12 more possible Artemis astronauts than were announced 5 years ago. On the other side, CSA, so Canadian Space Agency astronaut Jeremy Hansen, who just flew on the Artemis II mission, he trained alongside group 20. They graduated in 2011. Mission commander of Artemis II, also Reed Weissman, is also from group 20. And then Victor Glover and Christina Koch, she was at the time, Hammock, graduated with astronaut group 21 in 2015. So, using that data set, one data set, which is not valid for statistical purposes, but we're using it anyway, it seems unlikely that any of the 12 new astronauts that just graduated in 2024 are going to be assigned to Artemis III or Artemis IV. They're just too new. They don't have the experience in training. So the astronauts who will be assigned are plausibly from this group of 14 only. And we don't know which 4 will be assigned to Artemis III, which is not going to go to the moon anymore. As I said, Artemis III now has become a Earth orbit only to work on the maneuvers and the docking with the lunar lander, making sure that that all can be done in space, and we're going to do it here. And then Artemis IV was added, and that will be to the moon and boots on the moon. Which 4 of these are the lucky ones to go, and which 2 of these get to actually land on the moon, we don't know. NASA's not even telling us yet when they're going to announce it. So, but some 4 of these, and these here are the representations of you 20 and 30-year-olds in America and around the world, in fact. But you are the Artemis generation. And all of you who are growing up right now, you are the Mars generation. Okay? Some few of you are going to grow up and become astronauts, and sometime in the 2040s will orbit and hopefully set foot on Mars. I look forward to seeing that. Okay, back to the here and now.
On behalf of all the men and women across our great nation who have worked to make this day possible, I give you a go to launch Artemis I.
For the first time in 50 years, we were breaking out of low Earth orbit to head toward the moon.
We are putting something that we dreamed about into reality.
It sent the message really to the world that we have laid the foundation for a generational rocket.
How many times in your career do you get to be a part of a first?
And liftoff of Artemis I. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
For Artemis, this is just the starting point.
Ladies and gentlemen, your Artemis II crew.
Thank you to the NASA workforce. Thank you to our industry partners, everyone in Europe that's working for this.
America has made a very deliberate choice to curate a global team, and we are going to the moon together.
We need to celebrate this moment in human history. It is the next step on the journey that gets humanity to Mars.
Am I excited? Absolutely.
We're going to test out the vehicle's ability to conduct rendezvous maneuvers, crew's ability to actually fly Orion manually, and most importantly, we're going to test the environmental control system. We got humans on board. We got to keep them safe. We got to keep them breathing. And then we're going to have them come back at that high-speed entry of 32 times the speed of sound to make sure that they can survive this for future missions.
And so we have new launch commit criteria, we have changes to our procedures, changes to our timelines.
We have new systems for crew, we have new systems in the capsule, we have an emergency egress system.
By building incrementally these capabilities, improving these capabilities that we have, we will be able to live on the moon and be able to perform science for deep space exploration.
I am ready for Artemis II. The SLS team is ready for Artemis II.
We are ready for Artemis II.
We are ready.
We are ready.
All right, I'm ready. Let's go.
And indeed, we were ready. The entire mission was a resounding success. Artemis II splashed down back here on Earth on April 10. So let's talk about the Artemis II mission. Artemis II was a test flight of the new launch abort system, the new emergency egress system for the crew, and the deep space missions needed to get humans to the moon, and especially to Mars eventually. So the life support systems and proximity operation demonstrations, among other things. The #1 priority of the Artemis II mission was safety of the astronauts. The other two main goals was scientific discovery and an inspiration for a new generation of explorers, and I think it worked. There were 4 astronauts and 1 other special messenger on board Artemis II. So I'm going to blow through these pretty quick because I have a lot of content that I want to get to. Reed Wiseman, commander. Victor Glover, pilot. Christina Koch, one of 2 mission specialists. Jeremy Hansen, the other mission specialist. And the special guest was RISE, the zero gravity indicator. It's a little moon in an Earth hat. Science of Artemis II. So of course there was lunar science. I mean, this is the whole point, right? But there was also human-focused science. So here, oops, no. There we go. Here are the 14 lunar science objectives for the Artemis II mission and their priorities. But I'm not going to even read these because to me, the real story of Artemis II is the human one. And I wanted to get to that. And I can come back to this slide later if anybody wants to really dive in. So, depending on my sources, there were either 4 or 5 human-focused science objectives of Artemis II. First, Archer. Make sure you can see that. Archer stands for Artemis Research for Crew Health and Readiness. So basically, each of the astronauts wore this medical monitor, not only through the entire flight, all 10 days, but beforehand on Earth and afterwards, so that the doctors got baseline data, data during the mission, of course, and then post-mission response data. And no, we have done the question was, have we done that before? We have, for the International Space Station, in some sense, we had the year-long mission. They weren't wearing a band for a year, though. But I'll get into the bigger details later. Next was the immune biomarkers study, which is a saliva-based study of stress hormones and virus reactivation. AVATAR. Okay, AVATAR, though, is really cool, right? So it stands for a Virtual Astronaut Tissue Analog Response. So basically what NASA did is they took stem cells from each of the 4 astronauts, grew them into bone marrow cells, and then stuck them in this organ in a chip that the fingers are holding here, right? So an organ in a chip mimics how organs of the human body function. They breathe like a lung, they can beat like a heart, process like a liver. It's totally insane, and I love it. So after splashdown, researchers are going to take these back and use single-cell RNA sequencing to examine what happened to the tissues during the flight. And lastly, radiation, well, not lastly, but that I'm talking about, radiation exposure studies. Because as it turns out, the International Space Station is in low Earth orbit, which is inside of Earth's protective magnetic field. So all that 25 years of useful and important human body data, this is what I was starting to talk about earlier, does not include human body response to the significantly increased amount of solar radiation that astronauts traveling beyond low Earth orbit, living outside of the Earth's protective magnetic sphere, will experience at the moon and on Mars. That's the difference. So, you know, I keep talking about all the safety steps, features, processes that NASA takes. Why do I keep saying that? Any thoughts? Because otherwise, why bother? Because it's risky, yes, and it's true. And secondly, it explains why Artemis II's launch was so long after Artemis I of November 2022. This is the Artemis I capsule after its retrieval from the ocean and then turned so that we can see the bottom. What you are seeing here is the unexpected char loss from the spacecraft's heat shield, which was caused by cracking and uneven shedding of the outer layer during re-entry. You all could tell that from the picture, right? I didn't have to say it, obviously. Yeah, okay. The point is, the heat shield did not behave as expected, cracking and uneven shedding during re-entry. That meant an extensive investigation as to what went wrong, why, and how. And I'm very glad there were no astronauts on board of that one. Then they had to fix the design for Artemis II, and then make it through an independent review of NASA's investigation, findings, and results, and rebuilding. That was all finished in the spring of 2024. But turns out there wasn't just a heat shield problem. Artemis I did not test the life support systems for inside the Orion capsule because, of course, there were no humans. And a review of the technology released in 2024, January, so right before the heat shield was fixed, listed some problems that necessitated upgrades. At the same time, another group identified battery and electrical system redesign work that needed to be done. So that was the start of 2024. Finally, all of this we get through the rocket, the spacecraft, parts have to be built, they have to be stacked. So launch was targeted for September to October of 2025. But then in September of 2025, NASA delayed the launch due to both spacecraft and system issues. So in December, they set the new launch window for February 2026 with a no later than April 2026 statement. This is a picture of Artemis II rolling out from the Vehicle Assembly Building, so the VAB, in January of this year, 2026. And of course, Artemis launched on April 1st.
Was that bigger than, is that bigger than the Apollo?
It is much bigger than the Apollo rockets.
How much bigger?
I'll get you your answer at Q&A. So what you see here is a diagram of Orion's flight plan after separating from the Artemis rocket. Now, here's the thing. There's nothing that I can say that would even rival the description and the words coming from the astronauts themselves. So I'm going to go through this flight timeline, but I'm going to let NASA do most of the narration from now on. April 1 was launch day. What happened? Well, launch happened, and then proximity operations. So let's go through the launch.
Good afternoon from the Space Coast of Florida, where 4 astronauts are about to suit up for NASA's boldest test flight in a generation.
Our goal is to pursue the secrets of the universe, to change the world in air and space.
This crew cohesion, we're at the point now where we are ready to go fly. I've had shivers run up and down my spine a number of times.
This mission is an opportunity for our generation. It's about human history. It's the story of humanity.
The question isn't go or not go. It's are you going to lead or are you going to follow?
NASA has ever launched.
Reed, Victor, Christina, and Jeremy.
We are going for our families.
We are going for our teammates.
We are going for all humanity. The Artemis II crew is go for launch. Full send.
Let's go.
3, 2, 1. Booster ignition. And liftoff. The crew of Artemis II now bound for the moon. Humanity's next great voyage begins.
Houston integrity, grade 2.
This is a test flight, and so every single system aboard Orion is getting tested by humans for the first time.
The point is the end game. It's that first little teeny tiny curve that we stepped up on this really long journey.
As always, reminding us that the point of Artemis is Mars. Okay, after launch, Orion and its service module were still attached to the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, ICPS. That's what you saw it separating from. So this back here. The ICPS is used to place the spacecraft in a high elliptical orbit of Earth. And then the Orion and its service module were detached from the ICPS. So that's them there. And then the crew flew Orion around the ICPS to perform proximity operations, or prox-ops. And this was to demonstrate that Orion can indeed fly in tandem with another spacecraft and can operate around another spacecraft in space, because it will have to do that with the lunar lander, the new lunar lander that is yet to come. Okay, flight day 2. Each astronaut used the spacecraft's flywheel exercise machine for the first time, and then the translunar injection occurred. So here's Victor using the flywheel exercise machine right there. That's Victor. Up here is Christina's hair, so she's over here somewhere. Down here is Reed's back, so he's right over here. And this just shows how tight the quarters actually were. The translunar injection burn is the maneuver that put Artemis on its flight path around the moon. Without it, the crew never leaves Earth orbit.
Houston is go for TLI. With this burn to the moon, we do not leave Earth. We choose it.
Yeah, it was cute, you know, apparently it was anyways. Flight day 3, they're on their way to the moon. And for the first time, they practice in zero gravity the maneuvers and tasks they're going to need to do during the lunar flyby. They had practiced them on Earth, but not in zero G yet. So that's what they did on day 3. And a few safety demonstrations, CPR in space, things like that.
The 4 of us have looked at this moon our entire lives, and the way we are responding to what we are seeing out the window, and it's just like we're a bunch of little kids up here. Just, we cannot get enough of this.
That is something we have never seen before.
It's hard to wrap your mind around. Like, I mean that sincerely. It really bends your mind.
All right, so day 4, they are still outbound to the moon. They do a bunch of standard operations like talking to mission ops and some public media affairs. A lot more practice. And on day 4, they are given 20 whole minutes to take pictures of the Earth and the moon. So this was their view of Earth.
So who owns those pictures?
Who owns them? We all do. Okay. All of NASA's pictures and videos, anything that NASA releases is public domain. Here is the near side of the moon that they were seeing. And of course, the obligatory selfie. This is the picture of the Orion capsule was taken using one of the solar wing camera arrays. Solar array wing cameras. All right. Day 4.
And Integrity Houston, we have some news to share with you. As of 30 seconds ago, you are now closer to the moon than you are to us on Earth.
Yay! All right, flight day 5. They have finally entered lunar space. That means that the moon's gravitational pull on the Orion spacecraft became stronger than Earth's pull. They performed tests donning their spacesuits and strapping into their seats, just in case. And they received an audio message from Apollo 16 astronaut Charlie Duke.
Victor, Christina, and Jeremy. This is Apollo 16 astronaut Charlie Duke. John Young and I landed on the moon in 1972 in a lunar module we named Orion. I'm glad to see a different kind of Orion helping return humans to the moon as America charts the course to the lunar surface. Below you on the moon is a photo of my family. I pray it reminds you that we in America and all of the world are cheering you on. Thanks to you and the whole team on the ground for building on our Apollo legacy with Artemis. Godspeed and safe travels home.
I thought that was very special. Flight day 6. It is lunar flyby day, and this was a very busy day. So the Artemis II astronauts woke up to a special message from another Apollo astronaut, Jim Lovell. It had been recorded in 2025. Most of you know that he had passed.
Isn't he a U of M grad?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
The question was, isn't he a U of M grad? And yes. Then they prepared for lunar flyby. They began their lunar mission operations, and then there was loss of signal as they were going behind the moon. During that time, they recorded extensive observational data, took photos, tracked specific geological formations, and became the humans to have traveled ever the furthest away from Earth. Then they regained signal, and Jeremy, the mission specialist, named one of the new craters they found. It was a very bright crater, they described it as, after Reed's wife, who had passed from cancer in 2020. And then they witnessed the solar eclipse. So let's go through this day. Lots of stuff.
This is Apollo astronaut Jim Lovell. Welcome to my old neighborhood. When Frank Borman and Bill Andrews and I orbited the moon on Apollo 8, we got humanity's first up-close look at the moon and got a view of the home planet that inspired and united people around the world. I'm proud to pass that torch on to you as you swing around the moon and lay the groundwork for missions to Mars for the benefit of all. It's a historic day, and I know how busy you'll be, but don't forget to enjoy the view. So, Reed, and Victor, and Christina, and Jeremy, and all the great teams supporting you, good luck and Godspeed from all of us here on the good Earth.
So yes, he said, it's going to be a very busy day, but don't forget to enjoy the view. The astronauts then prepped for flyby, started their recordings and all, and then here is the loss of communications. Maybe?
As we prepare to go out of radio communication, to all of you down there on Earth and around Earth, we love you from the moon.
And we have confirmation of loss of signal of the Orion spacecraft as it flies behind the moon. We expect to regain communications with them in another approximately 40 minutes. This was expected as their spacecraft is now out of direct line of sight with Earth and behind the moon. And this is a poignant moment as it's the first time in over 50 years that we have humans completely unreachable by anyone else on Earth. No matter how distant or secluded, we could reach anyone living on Earth, but while the crew flies behind the moon, it's simply impossible to make contact with them.
And then this video is some of the observations the Artemis astronauts made, sent to us later, and some of the pictures they took from the far side of the moon that we never get to see, followed by the solar eclipse.
Just seeing Tycho, there's mountains to the north. You can see Copernicus, Rainier Gamma. It's just everything from the training, but in 3 dimension and absolutely unbelievable.
Kathy Moonjoy. Superlative thumbs up.
We just went sci-fi.
So here's what the eclipse looked like to the Orion astronauts. And these 3 are planets: Mercury, Venus, Saturn. In fact, if you get close enough, you can see the rings. But
Can I see the ring?
run up there and see them. Go ahead. Right there, right there. Yep, exactly. And here's what the eclipse looked like to the external cameras attached to the Orion spacecraft, the solar wings again. So there's the same 2, Mercury, Venus, and, well, the image is cut off. All right, next day, flight day 7. They exited lunar space. They relayed all that data back to Earth. And oops, there was a space-to-space call between Orion and the International Space Station. So this is the first time that we have had humans both in low Earth orbit and beyond low Earth orbit. So it's the first time a space-to-space call like this has ever been possible. And on flight day 7, they finally got some time off.
Integrity is ready for the event.
Oh. No, there. I did want to say, so this is 1 minute and 13 seconds long of the space-to-space call. I have the full 10.5-minute video. If anyone wants to see it after the Q&A, after the presentation, let me know. We actually have the room until like 2:40, and we can do that. So just let me know. But so here's a very, very short version.
Integrity is ready for the event.
Station, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call Integrity for a voice check.
Integrity, this is the International Space Station. How do you hear?
Hey, International Space Station and Jessica, we have you loud and clear. How about us?
We have you loud and clear as well, and we have BME TV up, so we have a view of you right now, and it is making us so excited. We feel like you're here with us, and this is really just making our entire week right now.
We have been waiting for this like you can't imagine.
I'm so happy that we are back in space together, even if we are, a few miles apart. We like to joke about that up here too, because everyone's talking about the records of the distance, and we ran to the far end of the space station when you guys were on the other side, so that we could claim we were the furthest away from you in that moment.
So when these 4 became the humans to be the furthest away from Earth ever, the other 4, or actually 7, on the International Space Station were the humans furthest away from them. Just because. Flight day 8, they're still inbound to Earth. This day was radiation shield test. So the crew practiced taking shelter from an event such as a solar flare. They used onboard supplies like the water tanks to put up against the walls, and the spacecraft's heat shield as a built-in radiation barrier. So turn Orion towards the sun for that first barrier, put up water and other things to absorb as much radiation as possible before it hits the humans. There was not a solar flare, it was just a test, but just in case. There was attitude control demonstrations, a call with the Canadian Space Agency for Public Affairs, a call with NASA for Public Affairs. They were actually pretty boring, so I didn't put them in here, but this is waiting for the call.
Awesome. Let me have a look, and we'll let you know if we have anything we can tee up for you now. Otherwise, we'll wait for it as scheduled.
That sounds great, and Victor's spinning is making us giggle. It's really spectacular.
So just some of the shenanigans when they weren't actually working. Okay, Flight day 9, it is the last travel day. There's some more technology demonstrations. They also tried on their orthostatic intolerance garments. So this is compression clothing that they wear after landing to counteract the effects of the body returning from a microgravity environment into gravity, mostly because the heart is a very lazy muscle. But that's another conversation. And of course, they strapped everything down for the day's return, the next day's return. All right, here we are, April 10, landing day. They donned their spacesuits, they unfolded the chairs, they strapped in, they jettisoned the service module, which is what the European Space Agency had made was part of this mission. Atmospheric reentry, splashdown, and then the Navy ship USS John P. Murtha, I hope I said that right, rendezvoused with the Orion at sea to collect both this crew and the spacecraft. So,
well, I'll tell you, I mean, after ignition, to me, the moment that I'm going to be most excited for is splashdown. There's no question about that. Good shoots coming down off the West Coast.
And of course, there's no sound in space. So this is Orion and the service module separating. And then the International Space Station actually got a view of Orion entering the atmosphere. It's awesome technology these days.
That is very cool. Technology is overloading.
And there go the first series of parachutes.
And Houston, we're visual 2 drones out the window.
Main chute deployed.
We most importantly choose this moment to challenge this generation and in the next to make sure this record is not long-lived.
Yes. And there is so much more that I wanted to put in this presentation, but alas, back to talking about the Artemis program overall. So we are still in phase 1, and we have just completed the Artemis II mission. Next up will be Artemis III, which, as I said, has just been moved back to Earth. It will have humans on board. It will not orbit the moon. So this is the analog or allegory to Apollo 7 and 9. Its mission is currently scheduled for next year, 2027. Then Artemis 4, then in the meantime, Artemis supply missions will occur to start delivering pieces and equipment in orbit around the moon that will be necessary to build the Gateway Space Station. And the final part of phase 1 is Artemis 4, which is when 4 humans go to the moon, 2 of them land on the lunar surface. NASA has promised one will be a woman and one will be a person of color. NASA has also stated that they will be live streaming from the moon, which I'm really excited to see. After that, we have phase 2. So Artemis phase 2 will be the buildup of sustainable systems informed by our initial missions that will allow Americans' human spaceflight program to maintain a robust lunar presence well into the next decade. Which means we don't know what the missions in the phase 2 are going to be until phase 1 is done. But that's it for the presentation. We're going to do question and answers, but I do have, in addition to the call-to-call video, I do also have the video of the first appearance of the 4 Artemis II astronauts after their landings, about 24 hours after. And I have trimmed out all the applause and all the Congress people talking so that it's just the astronauts. That's another about 10-minute video that we can do after Q&A if people want. All right, questions, please.
Do you think you could go back to that, like, where there was Earth there and Moon there with, like, a red ring around the moon and you were, like, pointing that? Like,
Yes, I can. Just give me a minute. Boom, 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 boom. We're close, we're close. Thought it was, nope. Okay, I went all the way back. What happened? Test flight, the crew. No. There we go. Okay, there it is. That one. There you go.
Why they would be working in the south side of the moon?
Yeah.
Is so that they have warp when they're working.
why they would be working on the south side of the moon is so that they have warmth while they are working. Yes, from the sun.
More a statement than a question, I guess.
That's fine. Statements are fine too. Anyone? Oh, wait for the microphone. Would you mind?
During splashdown, did they just drop them in the middle of the ocean and strand them?
Yes, they are dropped in the middle of the ocean. The parachutes slow them down enough. They hit the water. The balloons pop up to make sure that they write correctly. And then they just sit there and wait to be rescued.
Okay.
That is, in fact, what happened. My dad and I were watching it, and they found them really fast, because of course they've got eyes everywhere, and like we see them, they're coming down. It's going to be within this 1 square mile, and they found them pretty fast. And then they sent the people out with the little boats to go retrieve, and then they were just circling for a while, and we were like, "What's happening?" And so apparently the only failure of the mission was the walkie-talkie radio communication between the Artemis capsule and the ship that was sent to retrieve it. They couldn't talk to each other. So they had to talk to NASA to talk back and forth to each other because they just could not get that communication online. That was the single failure of the mission.
At least it was one with a redundancy.
Right, yes. Yes.
Just to be clear about the names, the return capsule is named Orion, not the whole rocket.
1 second. I went all the way back. I got to go over. So I do have some. NASA told me what some of the most common questions would be, and yours is one of them. So we're going to go to that slide if I can. There we go. Yeah, you can read these too if you want. No.
So I'll go by.
No, I missed it. You're right. There it is.
Capsule.
So,
what's the other one?
SLS is the rocket. Space Launch System is the rocket. Space Launch System. Orion is the capsule. So that is what came back, Orion.
Is it ground control?
Integrity is the name that Artemis II gave to their capsule. So think of Orion, the capsule, as like a plane is a 747 or an Airbus. The capsule that they were in is an Orion. Everybody will be in an Orion capsule. And then each one gets its own name, and that name was Integrity.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? We're going to work from back to front.
You showed a slide of the future missions, and you showed, I think, 3 missions that will be support. Okay, it says that. So, are those 3 all unmanned?
Yes, they're all unmanned.
Okay. One more question. Well, actually, it'd be 2 quick questions. Do you think that we will beat the Chinese to the moon to put a base there? I mean, to land there? And number 2, will our settlements on the moon be under the ground or still be on the surface?
Okay, I'm going to answer those in reverse order. The settlements on the moon will be on the surface. It's just going to be easier, and there isn't hostile atmosphere specifically to worry about, but of course there is the hostile solar environment. But right now the proposed is like arching, so not a dome all the way around, but long and like a barn almost. The designs are meant to withstand the solar radiation inside, so we won't have to go under the moon. The other question, do I think we will beat the Chinese to the moon to build a base? The official response from NASA is yes. Next question.
Wait, I saw a slide that said copy Moonjoy. What is copy Moonjoy?
Okay. What is copy Moonjoy? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I know. I should. What is copy Moonjoy? So I'm thinking somebody over here knows. But so I'm trying to find. Oh, I thought I'd get. I don't have my notes on this. All right, I'm going to try and do it out of my head, but it means I don't remember the name of the person who did it. So while the 4 of them are up there, and before they go into before they go behind the moon for loss of communications, they were just so excited. You heard them say earlier, we are like a bunch of kids up here, and they were so just above and elated and beyond themselves, and you could hear it in their voices and everything. And so the person sitting at Capcom at the time, they relayed something back, and they're like, this is so amazing. And the woman sitting at Capcom went, copy that, Moonjoy. And so it was completely unscripted, completely unprepared, and it also was in closed loop, so none of us heard it. The mission director down on Earth then repeated it back to the astronauts live. And so who gets attributed as for saying copy Moonjoy the first time, you're going to see 2 different names. And that's because the original person who actually said it was not in public media. So everybody assumes that the director said it first, when in fact that person was repeating it back. So NASA did set the record straight on their social media, but I don't have either of the names because I can't get to my notes. But that's copy Moonjoy.
So is there going to be a lot of robotics sent up to the moon before some of the people to build things? Is that in the plan?
Yes and no. We already have robotics up on the moon. Lots of countries have robotics up on the moon right now. I think we're at 7. I had a whole nother presentation on that. There will be some robotics to start assembling the space station, but not the moon bases. We don't have plans for how the moon bases are being assembled yet.
By space station, you mean orbiting the moon, or?
Oh, no, I mean on the moon. So who's on the, I'm going to try and channel the other presentation. ISRO, so the Indian Space something organization, India, is there. JAXA, the Japanese, the Arab Emirates, the UAE, they're so, and there are a couple private commercials that have also tried to land. Now, most of them have had hard landings, which is when the thing smacks in and is done, as opposed to a soft landing when it lands nicely and can still operate. But China does have rovers on the moon right now, as well as India. And there's other countries have landers. And yes, a bunch of countries have orbiters. But we are, in fact, as humanity, with robots on the moon, rolling and taking samples and recording everything.
We only have 1 Mars rover left, don't we?
Now I'm talking about the moon. As for Mars,
yeah.
Earth, America's the only one that has rovers on Mars right now.
But only one of them is working now, right?
2. 2 are still working. Ingenuity and Percy. No, Perseverance. I'm like, the nickname is Percy. It was coming to me. Perseverance. Yeah, no, we separated from Greek mythology for the rovers. All right, yes, what's your question?
I actually have 2 questions.
2 questions, do it.
First, have any women landed on the moon?
Not yet.
Ah. Okay. My second question was going to be how many. So if no
0.
one has, then yeah.
Yes.
Is there a estimated timeline for the colonization thing that you had talked about having a base to live?
Right now, the timeline is 2027 for Artemis III, 2028 for Artemis IV.
No.
And then Mars 2040. So somewhere between 2028 and 2040 is colonization of the moon. But it's not actually colonization, people going and growing and having families. It is more like the International Space Station, where we are sending scientists and astronauts to work for a year or so maybe, but probably more like 3 to 6 months and then coming home.
More like Antarctica than
Yes, way more like Antarctica than an actual colonization, exactly. Hang on, someone else is gonna have a turn, then we'll come back, okay?
Have there ever been any agreements between the American space mission and the China-Russian, what do you call it, space agency, in that if something happened to either of them, if there was an emergency on the ground on the moon, that there would be assistance from the rival space mission as a rescue mission or something, or aid?
Okay. No. However, Roscosmos is the Russian space agency. China's space agency, why am I blanking on the name? Anyways, part of the International Space Station, there were agreements made between Russia, America, Canada, the ESA, and I want to say JAXA. So there's 5 majors. So yes, if anything goes wrong in the International Space Station, Russia will help and has proven that they will. Remember when SpaceX sent up the first Dragon capsule and then it couldn't come back and the astronauts got stranded? It was Russia that brought them home. So the moon, right now, there is a set of agreements called the Artemis Accords. And as of last count, I think 27 nations had signed to it. China and Russia are not one of those. I do not know. I cannot speak for NASA. I cannot speak for any government. But my hope is that with our history in space with Russia, with the International Space Station, that if something were to happen on the moon, yes, we would come to their aid or they would come to our aid. Any other questions?
So I heard that there was a bathroom on the Artemis II space station and there were some issues with that. It does seem like quite the engineering challenge. Do you have any insights into what they learned and how it went?
Singular toilet on the Artemis II capsule. And I didn't manage to get, I had kind of, I just didn't put this in the presentation, there was too much. But basically it pops out of the floor and then a little like curtain screen comes around it so that you can have privacy to do your business while the other 3 are just right there. Because again, this is the size of like 2 to 3 minivans squished together. And then it all pops back into the floor. Shortly before the launch, there was a problem, and they identified it, and they believed they had fixed it. And then about halfway, not quite halfway through the mission, turned out it broke again, but thankfully was fixable before lunar flyby, and all ended up being well.
So there was, you said something about under the moon's surface. How hard is the moon's surface? Is it like granite? There's no topsoil on the moon, right? So if you wanted to be below the moon's surface, is it difficult to dig?
It's not that difficult to dig in the sense that all we're planning right now is to go under to get to the water. All we have to do is drill for that. We know how to drill. We drill through all different types of hardness and thicknesses here on Earth, right? We got that handled. If we were trying to dig under the surface to build a building, that's a whole different set of techniques and strategies that we're just not planning for. Use the microphone, please.
Oh, my question was, before they had the technology to directly communicate from one spaceship to another, they had to, one spaceship talk to NASA, then NASA talked to the spaceship the other spaceship wanted to talk to.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Also more a statement than a question.
He's just confirming. He's confirming.
No. Yeah, I was confirming.
Just confirming.
He's confirming. I understood. Anyone else? And again, we're at 2 o'clock, so if people need to leave or want to leave, this was our allotted time. I thank you very much. I am going to stay another 30 to 40 minutes for anyone who wants to talk, ask questions, watch videos. Oh, come get your stickers, please, because I'm going to forget.